Okay, if good evening, folks. If we could come into the present, into this moment, and find a comfortable position. Balance yourself across your pelvic floor. Close your eyes or leave them open in a general downward gaze. Take a deep breath in and out. And another breath in and out. And at your own pace, take one more breath and let go of all of the tension, excitement, and busyness of the day. Relax your forehead, jaw, neck, and shoulders. Find an anchor for your awareness, maybe your breath or the sounds around you, or your awareness of space. Stay with your anchor, allowing thoughts and feelings to come and go like waves on the ocean. Be aware of your thoughts and feelings without judging them, returning to your anchor when they pass through your awareness. Continue to focus on your breath or sounds around you, noting those anchors lovingly and lightly for a few more minutes. When you're pulled away by thoughts, feelings, or body sensations, recognize them without judgment and allow them to be, and then return to your anchor and to the present moment. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Come into the space. So again, I haven't touched this text since we last met. So I will move through it, mostly like a newcomer, like a baby, and ask questions when they rise, and feel free to totally uh, expand on whatever is being said, both in text and in the conversation, so that we can squeeze the most volume and the most truth out of our understanding. So in the book, on page 178, in the first full sentence, it says, These rivers of accumulation of virtue are said to be unpolluted by the triple aspects, which means that they are free of the polluting dirt of focusing on the triple aspects. This is because focusing can never be the path to enlightenment. From entering the middle way, even though you dedicate merit to Buddhahood's complete enlightenment, that dedication will be mundane if made with the threefold focus. If there is no focusing, that itself was taught by the Buddha to be supramundane perfection. Thus, such texts as the Mother of the Conquerors teach that every good action that is accompanied by focusing is the Mara activity of bodhisattvas. According to Entering the Middle Way, which uses generosity as example, the triple aspects are focusing on these three: the object of action, the action itself, and the agent. And then a partial quote: generosity that is devoid of giving, receiving, and giver. Dot, dot, dot. So are we discussing something that went on the previous page that might enlighten me? I'm enjoying the thought of non-focus on these aspects, which seems to me to be defocusing on the phenomenal world, defocusing on my engagement or reaction with or grasping on these things, the objects, the action, and the agent. Anybody want to add to my comprehension?
I think that when giving, it's good not to add false ideas to it, you know? Like we're doing something, and then by focusing on the giver, the recipient, and the gift, we're kind of adding layers of superficial dross onto what's already there.
So are we continuing with a discussion around giving that I missed out on? Or are you just speaking to the last example?
Yeah, I was just speaking to what was just read.
Mm-hmm.
Just to show you, the verse that it's referring to has been partially unpacked until we started this week. And now, looks like the next 3 pages will unpack the latter part about the kayas.
Adrian, are you there?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I'm here. I just had a long day. I had to figure out some things. I'm here, but I'm kind of like not here.
No worries. Just wanted to check for the community whether whether you were able to listen even lightly.
He's on theme though, because he said he's here, but he's not here, which
Okay,
kind of goes along with what's being said.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One of my trucks blew a rod today, and just had to figure out some things. Like low mileage truck, blew a rod, blew the engine up. So
Low mileage truck, huh?
was that?
A low mileage truck, you said?
Yeah, it was not even 80,000 miles.
Okay.
It blew a rod, put a hole in the engine.
Oh my God.
Mm.
Was there oil short or
I don't know.
okay. Anyway, let's not dwell on that because you're dwelling enough. So I'm going to continue. Um, so after that partial quote on generosity, devoid of the giving, the receiver, and the giver, the text says, "None but Aryas have true wisdom free from focusing on the triple aspects. But ordinary beings can have an equivalent understanding gained from scriptures and the Guru's instructions. Generally, wisdom devoid of method is bondage to the aspect of nirvana, while method devoid of wisdom is bondage to samsara. Therefore, you have to practice both wisdom and method inseparably. Excuse me. This is why the words quote unquote all beings teach the method of great compassion, and the words unpolluted by the triple aspects teach the wisdom of emptiness. Similarly, from the sutra requested by Aksayamati, wisdom devoid of method binds you to nirvana, while method devoid of wisdom binds you to samsara. Therefore, they must be united. What's being said there?
I think it's just important to remember the structure. He's unpacking the verse and he's pretty much explained the verse. The verse that's on bottom of 176, top of 270, 177. And he's explained the verse now. Now he's going to elaborate on the four kayas. He's unpacking this. He's giving us commentary.
So that which I did not read expresses the idea that wisdom and method are only sensible if they are paired with each other.
He's drawing that out of the verse.
Right.
It's part of the commentary.
Okay. So moving on, the accumulations of virtue are dedicated to the four kayas: the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, the Nirmanakaya, and the Swabhavakaya. So let's talk about the Dharmakaya.
If I
This
could
is
just interject for just 1 second and just
Please.
put this into a little bit of a perspective, that what we've been talking about is Mahamudra practice. So we've been examining that in previous chapters, and now we're embarking on a practice of Mahamudra, and it begins with this prayer. So what this is, what we're reading right now, is just like the introduction to that prayer. We're getting to that prayer, which then becomes part of the practice of Mahamudra. So that might help to put things into context. Mahamudra being, this samadhi, the state of samadhi, where all things are just let go. It's just this peaceful state of mind that is just open and totally aware, but there's no focus. There's no effort to make a focus except that which might appear, through some kind of happening or something like that. But on its own, on our own, we're just trying to maintain a peacefulness.
So am I to assume that maintaining that peacefulness is an act of accumulating virtue, and that sort of,
That's
and
certainly
that's
part of it, yeah.
and then sort of automatically, because of the state of virtue, that that it just flows into the four kayas?
Well, personally, if you're asking the question, does the virtue precipitate this automatically? I wouldn't say that exactly. That you have to work at it. You have to identify it. There is a whole process of understanding, where all this fits in and so on. So we have to uh, uh, um, develop that to get to this point to be able to make the peacefulness stable.
Thank you. So, with reference to the Dharmakaya, this is the wisdom that directly realizes the ultimate nature of the Dharma Dhatu. It is the primary condition for the Sugata's accomplishment of unsurpassable benefit. Arya Nagarjuna has taught, I pay homage to that which is neither one nor many, which is the basis for the great, perfect benefit for oneself and for others, which has the nature of not being nothingness and not being a thing, which has less than an equal taste, like space, which is difficult,
Which has an equal taste.
which has an equal taste, like space. Huh. Interesting that I read that way. Which is difficult to realize, which is without stain, and which is without change, which is peace, which is equality of the unequal, which is pervasive, which is without any elaboration, which is an individual self-knowing, the Dharmakaya of all the conquerors, for which there is no example. With regard to the Sambhogakaya, this is described in the Ornament of Realization. It has the nature of the 32 primary signs and the 80 secondary signs. It's taught to be the sage's Sambhogakaya, or enjoyment body, because it enjoys the Mahayana. Although there appear bodies with every single attribute of the Sugata's form kayas, they have no nature of their own, and thus they have no limitation. This is what the Vajrayana calls bodies and faces with every feature. Moreover, the Sambhogakaya teaches the Mahayana alone, because its pupils and realms are completely pure.
Well, that's interesting. I think I'd like to take a minute to think about
Please.
that or discuss that. That is what the Vajrayana calls bodies and faces with every feature. Moreover, the Sambhogakaya teaches the Mahayana, the middle way, alone. Moreover, the Sambhogakaya teaches teaches the Mahayana alone because its pupils and realms are completely pure, because its pupils and realms are completely pure.
I think they only teach in the Pure Lands.
Well, I think, to me, they teach of the Pure Lands in intellectual approach, that the Sambhogakaya involves the intellect. And that's why we have all these, icons, all the iconography and so on, all these texts to support it, because we haven't developed the ability to just be in space. We need to articulate this. This is focused for human beings to be to become the deity, to become the enlightened ones, but we're not yet there. So the Sambhogakaya is approaching that. Remember that the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya are both relative expressions of the Dharmakaya. The Dharmakaya manifesting in these two temporary forms in order that ordinary beings can approach the Dharmakaya. So that's why I always look at it that Sambhogakaya is the body of the intellectualization, all the books, all the teachers, all the iconography, etc., of the Dharmakaya. Bernie, Pete, what would you guys think about that?
Well, I recall being told once that the Sambhogakaya Buddhists don't teach through words, they teach through symbols and forms. So there's no verbal teaching per se in the Sambhogakaya. Now, as for saying that they are pure, I believe what that means is that the only the pure Dharma is being taught, but I could be wrong about that. It could be that they're pure, relatively pure of the defilements, because the usual teaching is that in order to attain the Pure Lands, one has to be at least on the first bhumi, except for Amitabha, of course. But so in that sense, they are pure because there's no gross defilements in those realms. Could be wrong about that, but that's what I recall being taught. I mean, obviously, this is a lower level than the Dharmakaya, because the Dharmakaya, there's no need to teach because it's like your own realization, whereas in the Sambhogakaya, there is a need to teach. But unlike the Nirmanakaya, it's everything is being taught through signs and symbols and not through words.
So if I could be a little bit more or just specific about, what these appearances might be, if we can use the Vajradhara or Samantabhadra is the expression of the primordial Buddha, beyond conceptual thought.
Sure.
Dharmakaya. Okay. But then the five Buddha families and all the associated other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, et cetera, are all part of the Sambhogakaya.
So am I halfway correct thinking of this kaya and the other kayas as realms, that much like this form realm here are dharma, so teach by their very existence, or is the Sambhogakaya a realm where there's intentional teaching or intentional teachers?
I think the Sambhogakaya form of each person becomes enlightened, that the Sambhogakaya form is created by their previous vows to benefit all sentient beings. And it's like a really pure form that they appear in, and each Buddha has a Sambhogakaya form. And that form teaches in a pure land.
So the word kaya, I think, literally translates to be a body. So there's Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, etc. So it's referring to I guess a manifestation or
An emanation?
an emanation. Yes, thank you. An emanation. Well, that's the emanation body would be the Nirmanakaya.
Nirmanakaya.
The Sambhogakaya would be the enjoyment body, and the Dharmakaya would be the truth body. So who is this of? Who's the body? Who's the body that's holding this? So, going back to my example, it's of the human being. It's of the human being who is on the path to Dharmakaya, to the truth body, but first, receives teachings from the Nirmanakaya body teacher, and who is expressing the Sambhogagaya. And that's why it's called the enjoyment body, because when we're in that body, or when we're focused on that body, or when we are um, uh, examining, however you wish to look at it, um, it's very enjoyable. I mean, literally, it's very enjoyable. It's bliss. It's explaining that state of mind, and maybe that's why when we go into the shrine room at any particular center that has a lot of the iconography, immediately we are transported into this blissful state, because we're in the midst of that enjoyment body. We're seeing all this stuff that is mnemonic of that blissful state, and it helps to catapult us to that state.
So we're seeing everywhere we look, we're seeing Buddhas manifesting as form, phenomena, everything we're seeing.
Literally, as human beings, yes,
Yeah.
exactly, yes.
Mm.
So that's one aspect of the Sambhogagaya. But imagine sitting on the cushion with your eyes closed, and then reflecting on all the teachings that you've had and all the deity yoga that you've experienced and so on, and having that experience in that position. And that's the Mahamudra. That's what we're trying to achieve, to be stable in that Mahamudra, in that enjoyment body. That at this point right now, it's explaining what that is.
So that would naturally be a cause of bliss if one could intentionally be in that space, free from non-virtuous activities, still connected with the world, still connected with what we acknowledge as other things and
Well,
activities.
we're kind of transcendent at that point.
Yeah.
We're in the midst of the deity yoga, really, the union with the deities, the Sambhogagaya deities. We're in the midst of that.
I think the Nirmanakaya are emanated by the Sambhogakaya. Like the Sambhogakaya is residing in the Pure Land and emanates, 10 million forms, people, statues, paintings, stupas, all kinds of things.
Well, I think a strict way of looking at it would say that it's the Nirmanakaya emanation that is pointing that out, that is teaching us to be able to recognize that, to see that. And it takes another human being to help us to do that. So that's what the Nirmanakaya being would be. Who's pointing to the mind, the intellectual mind, that leads to the spiritual mind. The spiritual mind would be pure Dharmakaya. The Sambhogagaya would be pure brain, intellect. And the Nirmanakaya would be pure physical body.
So in Sambhogakaya, one gets to witness in an actual sense the aliveness of everything that we sense, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
that we get to witness and realize the aliveness of everything that our senses connect with, the life that's in the things and the actions and the actualness that is actually our mind, in our mind, interacting with these objects that we believe are objects, and realizing that they're that these things do not have their own true nature. So seeing them as part of the larger aliveness of the world.
Yes, I think that's true. I think that that is a powerful realization of realizing that all this phenomenal nature is part of the Dharmakaya.
Mm.
It's the Dharma Dhatu.
Anybody
When
else
I was
want?
saying the Dharmakaya before, I misspoke when I said about the body. It would be the mind. It would be the mind of that, but it would be the big mind. It wouldn't be the little mind. The little mind would be the intellectual part of things, the Sambhogagaya part of things. But that focusing on the big mind. This is when the little mind and the big mind are coming together. I mean, I'm saying these things. Does anybody have another thought about this, or do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this? What do you think of this? I think it's pretty provocative thoughts.
Well, I see a layering, and I think you might be suggesting that if we're thinking in terms of levels of anything, then they don't exist separate from the rest because they evolve from the same core. So the Dharmakaya, a lot of us think the Dharmakaya is out here, whereas if we want to think location-wise, the Dharmakaya is here.
It's all
And
pervasive.
Sambhogakaya is layered on top of that. And then their Nirmanakaya is layered on top of that, where we sense a congealment, where the world becomes physical, and we sort of identify with matter. So let's talk about the Nirmanakaya from the text here. When there is true Buddhahood in the form of a Sugata Sambhogakaya, just like the sun radiating light, the embodiments of spontaneous activity immediately appear within a variety of pure and impure realms. Tibetan scholars have taught that there are supreme Nirmanakayas who demonstrate the 12 deeds in Jambudvipa.
And that's this human realm. Zambupipa is this human realm that we are manifesting in.
Thank you. And I don't mean to interrupt myself, but it's referencing supreme Nirmanakayas plural as who?
Buddhas.
So I mean that's
living,
what it's
living Buddhas, living
okay.
emanated Buddhas.
Right.
Shakyamuni Buddha and
Is a
Kashyapa
Nirmanakaya.
and so on
Okay.
like that.
Uh-huh. So we're thinking of them in terms of it's plural, so that's the separate existences or instances. All right. And then there's born Nirmanakayas who appear as beings, such as Arya and ordinary beings, but who can also appear as matter, such as stupas, ships, and bridges. Wow. And then created Nirmanakayas, such as the lute player who was emanated to teach King Nanda of the Gandharvas. However, scholars have clearly taught in their texts that a born Nirmanakaya is when a supreme Nirmanakaya takes birth in the Kshatriya or in another caste.
That's the Indian upper caste.
Uh-huh. So a born Nirmanakaya is when a supreme Nirmanakaya takes birth in the Ksatitra or another caste.
That's the warrior caste, the warrior class.
Kshatriya.
Kshatriya?
Yeah, that's with the period underneath it is an SH.
um, a a created Nirmanakaya demonstrates a mastery of various skills, and a supreme Nirmanakaya demonstrates the attainment of enlightenment. That conforms to the meaning of this passage from the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. The Nirmanakayas of the Buddha, which always demonstrate skill, birth, great enlightenment, and nirvana, are the great method for liberation. So we're identifying living beings for the most part that are at different at different levels of enlightenment, and their activities express that.
No, they're all completely enlightened.
So they're all completely enlightened. Okay.
Yeah.
They're emanations of the Dharmakaya for the benefit of ordinary beings who
So
otherwise
this is
wouldn't realize them.
so this is referencing their activities that they show, their
manifestations.
Uh-huh. in an increasingly sophisticated and realized fashion.
It's really parsing the word Nirmanakaya, you know. And
so let's go to Svabhavakaya. Excuse me, I could never pronounce that. This is great peace, and is the nature of all phenomena. It is attained through the power of the Dharmakaya, through realization. The Vajrayana called this the body of great bliss, or Mahasukha Bhakaya, because its distinctive quality is supreme, unchanging bliss. Arya Nagarjuna has said, I pay homage to that which is free from the activity of the three realms, which is the equality of space, which is the nature of all things, which is purity, which is peace, which has the nature of supreme peace, which is the yoga of absence, which is realized by the yogin, which is difficult to realize, which is difficult to analyze, which is beneficial to oneself and others, which is pervasive, which is featureless, which is free of thought, which is the one kaya, which is the bliss kaya, the equality of the unequal, all of the conquerors.
So this is the samadhi. And a couple of weeks ago, I sent you all a excerpt from chapter 13 of the Samadhi Raja Sutra, which this stanza, whatever, is like another translation of that paper that I sent you.
So what you sent us, was that a Nagarjuna teaching as well, or just a?
It's a Buddha Sutra.
Oh, okay. So if my ignorant self were to be thinking of these things as layers, and in an increasingly enlightened perspective, but the Svabhavakaya as a being is somebody that is at what Buddha level? I mean, enlightened, but to the extent of still being in samsara, still interacting with form and phenomena and other beings.
I think it's expressed as being co-emergent.
Uh,
I have a question I'm curious for Lance to tackle. To try to answer Michael's question, here's my attempt. It says, it is attained through the power of the Dharmakaya.
Where are you looking at?
very just under the second sentence. In the in the
Oh, okay,
Swababakaya.
Yeah.
So that it's attained through the power of the Dharmakaya. So that brings the Dharmakaya aspect in as central to being able to experience this particular kaya. To I'll call it experience. But then the other thing I see is it says it's the great peace and the nature of all phenomena. So that to me reminds me of the latter sutra, the latter verses of the seven supplications, where they talk about realizing that all phenomenon are empty, fully realized. It's where it's where you get to that level of beyond equal taste, where there's no non-meditation. Where I almost think it's like where there's non-meditation, where you're meditating all the time, you don't meditate, non-meditate. And that's why it's great peace, bliss of all phenomenon, because, nature of all phenomenon and its distinct quality is supreme, unchanging bliss. Anyway, I'm just playing with it.
The way that Kenshin usually describes the Svabhavakaya is that it's kind of the combination of all the other three kayas together as one thing.
The stabilization.
With the best of all the best features. Huh?
Well, they all have great features, but it's the co-emergence of it that is now all come together, and now it has become phenomenal, as well as becoming as well as its absoluteness. You can see it in the phenomenal nature as well as in the absolute, because you see it all. It's all one thing. I mean, not that we're seeing it with our eyes, but it's being recognized through the heart mind. And these aren't thoughts. This is an experience.
Yeah.
Nature of all phenomena, distinctive quality, supreme, unchanging bliss.
Yeah,
It's tying it all together.
So it's definitely experiential, but without an experiencer, or without a notion of.
Well, there's no distinction of the experiencer at this.
Yeah.
One is it's all assimilated and to be the same. That's the equality. There's no distinctions.
There's no duality of experience and experiencer.
Right, and again, this is what's explained in this chapter 13 of the Samadhi explanation that I sent. It's really, for me, it was something I was looking for, and it's like an affirmation that blows my mind, but I was totally prepared for the mind blowing. It was just being able to be able to say, oh yeah, right. So I recommend it to everybody. So here's a question, because I haven't thought about it in these terms, but where in the Samadhi is the Mahamudra? Where in the Mahamudra is the Samadhi? Are they same thing? Is the Mahamudra, that is that the is it talking about the same thing but in a different interpretation of it or something like that? I haven't thought of that way, so I'd have to think about that a little bit. Unless somebody have an answer to that?
Well, Mahamudra is a group of techniques, and one of the results of the techniques can be samadhi, just as another result can be wisdom or insight. So samadhi, you can gain samadhi through the practice of Mahamudra, but also through other practices as well.
Well, that's interesting. That's good to put it that way, that Mahamudra is a set of techniques. That's an interesting, I hadn't put together like that.
I think it has several meanings. That's one meaning. Certainly this whole book
Well-
is a collection of stuff about the Mahamudra, but in the supreme sense, it's on Buddhahood.
Well, they talk about Mahamudra in three senses. Mahamudra as ground, Mahamudra as path, and Mahamudra as fruition. And I was talking about as Mahamudra as path, whereas the nature of reality is Mahamudra as ground, and Buddhahood is Mahamudra as fruition.
So Mahamudra is like is like a system, if you will, and the result is the samadhi.
Sure, it's a pure expression of the Buddha's intent, but it's
What is the
but
Mahamudra or the
Mahamudra,
samadhi?
because it's well, I can't really say that. That would be saying too much, because it's without adornment. You know, other practices are, it's very simple and it's without adornment, without elaboration, but it's really just another path to the same goal. And obviously, people who have never heard of Mahamudra have also attained enlightenment. So it's not the only path.
So Mahamudra, as we talk about in the fivefold path of Mahamudra, the Mahamudra is the meditation stage, the meditation path.
It's the form of meditation.
It's
One
the
of
form of meditation, and the
There's
result
also-
is the samadhi.
There's also deity meditation in the fivefold Mahamudra too.
Correct. You know,
And there's the unitive state, which is the highest samadhi.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that term is Mahamudra too.
Well, sure. It's
Like Bernie said, Buddhahood, path, and what was the third one, Bernie?
ground, path, and fruition. Ground, path, and fruition.
So
So
you gotta
these
know
are,
which one they're referring to, or else if you get them confused, it would throw you. You gotta know
I
which
think,
way they're talking about it.
Ground Mahamudra is the nature of reality and how it is. Path Mahamudra is all the techniques, and Fruition Mahamudra is the realization of complete enlightenment through those techniques.
which we call samadhi.
Yeah.
let me give
Samadhi
you
is
the
not complete
definition of
realization.
samadhi. The definition of samadhi from the sutra, from the Samadhi Raja Sutra, is the revealed equality of the nature of all phenomena.
Sounds like a big one.
That's a serious realization.
And there are lesser samadhis too. You know, along the path of Mahamudra, you hear lesser states of, if you will, concentration or mind control, whatever.
Well,
The
yeah, I
highest
think
highest state is the ground.
there are different samadhis. For instance,
Yeah.
they talk about the samadhi in the Heart Sutra, the samadhi which examines the Dharma, called profound illumination. So there are different samadhis. So, and one form
I
of
think there's hundreds or thousands of samadhis.
yeah, there are probably limitless numbers of samadhis, but there can be a Mahamudra samadhi, and there can be
A
all sorts
Vipassana
of
samadhi.
Okay, Vipassana samadhi, insight is sure. And samadhi can be joined with insight too, like it says in the Heart Sutra, the samadhi which examines the dharmas, which would be a kind of insight, I think.
Mhm.
And depending on your text, these terms might be used slightly differently, you know, in terms of the way
Sure.
particular texts choose to define these terms. We got to be smart enough and well-versed enough to be able to, you know, kind of fish that out without, you know, be able to make some sense out of it. And maybe we need commentary to help us there sometimes.
Yeah. Otherwise, people like me grasp onto concepts that emerge through metaphor and and definition, and there's not enough space in it. So I get attached to certain identifying certain concepts as actual, you know, and they feel like they've got edges, and when actually I need to let go of that.
And it's not like it's the only term either. They might use the word insight or mind. You know, they can use another term, original mind. They use these. There are lots of terms they use, and even some of the imagery is ways of personifying, the different qualities, states, attainments, whatever.
I'd like to address something Michael was just saying, which is like letting go of the concepts and so forth and the definitions and whatnot. And it's like they say, when you cross the ocean on a raft and then you leave the raft when you get to the shore, right? But when you're out at sea on the way to that shore, you need that raft. You need that raft. And we need the teachings and the ideas and so forth to guide us and to carry us through to that where we can just open up completely freely and realize enlightenment.
You're right. And I just looked this up in this book that I got from Shambhala Publications, and it basically says that samadhi in its most general state is one-pointed mindfulness on whatever topic you're applying that one-pointed mindfulness to. And the other point that I need to make is that the quote that I've been referring to, this sutra, is the king of samadhis.
Sure, it's Samadhi Raja Sutra.
The Samadhi Raja Sutra. So it's the king of all the samadhis. So
Sure.
it was, the answer was right there. And that's, I think maybe that's what Michael was just trying to say, and that is, in our minds, we're jumping from one thing to another so fast, we miss the point of staying, one-pointed mindfully and our investigation in our moment or whatever. And so we, isn't that the, what's the name of the mind when we're jumping around like that? Not the monkey.
Monkey
Not the
mind.
monkey mind.
Not the monkey way.
The discursive thoughts. Discursive, where in samadhi, discursive thoughts stop.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think of discursive, I think of cursive, and cursive outlines. So I think the mind wants to do that quickly, so it can move, so it can make sense of what's arising, and at the same time make sense of our interaction with it. So it's like we allow ourselves to get an outline of what we're seeing, in an outline in a couple of terms, an outline as in just the basic, just the shape. So we're satisfied with the shape, so we can just move on to something else. Let me go past this quote, which just ended. The quality of the unequal of all the conquerors. So
where are you?
I'm going into the last paragraph on page 180. Thus, Rangjung Dorje.
Yes.
Thus, Rangjung Dorje portrays the four kayas as the ocean, the embodiment of vastness and depth. And he prays that the previously described rivers of accumulation of virtue will enter it. This verse is a prayer that summarizes the qualities of the Sugata's path and its result. You must understand that everything that follows is simply an elaboration of this verse. The treatises on poetry teach that this style of writing, in which the symbol and the symbolized are conjoined, is called decorative metaphor. Yeah, we were just talking about that, more or less. Decorative metaphor.
Now, mind you, just coming back, remembering this, if you look back at page 176, towards the bottom, it says the actual prayer, 2 parts, a general dedication to the specific prayer. The general dedication is what we just finished it, because the next is a specific prayer. And there's only one verse that's the general dedication. May the rivers of accumulation of virtue, you can see it on the bottom, 176 and 177. So it just referred back to that. It said this verse, that's the verse I just pointed to, summarize the qualities. So it's right. He's wrapping up his commentary on the general dedication of good karma to complete life.
So moving on to the specific prayer then. This has 5 parts. A prayer for a perfect basis for the path. A prayer for wisdom that realizes the path. A prayer for an unmistaken path. A prayer for an unmistaken practice of the path. And a prayer for the result that is the path's completion. And forgive me if I'm wrong with what I'm grokking here, but I'm interpreting basis as sort of the ground, as the argument, or as the ground, the it that it stands upon, and by being mistaken or unmistaken, I think we're referencing a state of delusion or non-delusion.
I'd like to offer a little help here for something. When I was trying to get the structure of this whole chapter, which is a long chapter, I think it's about, hold on just a second. It's 114 pages. This whole chapter. It's, like I said, one of the longest ones we got. But these headings here, 1 through 5, are not in the same typeface or not in the same exact phrasing as they are right here. So I had to look a little bit, and I've got the page numbers that where you can find each of these 5 headings. And I will give you those 5 page numbers if you like them.
Well, they're within the same section?
No, these 5 headings are the rest of this long text.
Of this particular
chapter.
Of
This whole chapter is all covered under this 1 through 5. And again, these 5 things they have as prayers are not in the same typeface or in the same exact wording. I had to kind of look for them to kind of find them, but I did fish out exactly what page each of these 5 prayers begin, and I'll give you those 5 page numbers.
Okay.
So the first one is this page. See, it says prayer for a perfect basis for the path. That's right below the 1 through 5. Number 2 is on page 188. Number 3 is on page 194. Number 4 is on page 199. And the 5th one is 274.
So talking about outlines, this is a serious outline we're looking at.
Yeah, when I was looking through it, it was like, where am I finding this stuff? And you really had to kind of look. I can't remember which ones are slightly off in their wording, but it was our typeface size, but that's what I remember. I think I remember that correctly.
So they're also referenced as verse 3, verse 4, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first one has verse 3 and verse 4 in there.
Well, on page 188, for the wisdom to realize the path, that matches number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to check and see. I think, let me just look. Okay, the next one matches. Okay, I may be wrong. I may be getting confused about something else, but 199. The number, it doesn't have the numbers on the page, but it actually has the exact same words, that you see on this page.
All right, well, let's get back to the content, and the structure of it will fall into place. It'll be helpful at some point.
So, looking at the first one, a prayer for a perfect basis for the path has 2 parts. It's got a general prayer and a specific prayer. Now, the general prayer for a perfect basis for the path obviously has a couple of verses, like prose or a song. And this one it says, until the time that we attain that, may we throughout every lifetime never even hear the words bad actions and suffering, and enjoy the glorious ocean of good action and happiness. The first two lines refer to all lifetime from this life onward until the time that we attain a unique level
That
of the
unique,
four.
that unique level.
We attain that unique level of the four kayas of the conquerors that has just been explained. The next two lines are a prayer to enjoy solely the glory of causal good actions and the resultant happiness, which is like the ocean, and to never even hear the words causal bad actions and resultant suffering. So from Precious Garland, bad actions are those that originate from desire, anger, and stupidity. Suffering originates from bad action, as do all the lower existences. Good actions are those that originate from the absence of desire, anger, and stupidity. All the higher existences and the happiness of all lifetimes originates from good action. And from entering the conduct of the Bodhisattva. Also, this is what should always be, day and night, my constant thought. Wickedness means suffering. How can I get away from it? And then we're looking at verse 4 coming up, a specific prayer for a perfect basis for the path. May I obtain the supreme freedoms and opportunities, have faith, diligence, and wisdom, rely on an excellent spiritual friend, obtain the quintessence of the teaching, practice them correctly and without any obstacle, and thus practice the sublime Dharma throughout all of my lifetime. That's a serious prayer, just packaged that way. Wow. Any commentary so far from you guys?
Well, I think this is all needs to be practiced, just
Yeah.
having one reading or two readings, three readings isn't enough. This has to be something that is contemplated very deeply, and then meditation arises out of it, and then our mind catches up with it, and then we tear it apart and have to re-examine it again until we become the embodiment of these prayers.
Next 6 pages all unpack verse 4.
Yeah, it's a long explanation. No point in explaining what's explained better in this text.
Right.
Very good.
And when that's done, you're on to part 2 on
All
page
right.
194. So that just gives you a framework of what we're looking at here. We got these 2 verses. They're all part 1. We just read both of them.
Are we going to 8:30?
Yeah.
Usually.
So now it says the earlier line, until the time that we attained that, that's what I stumbled on there, could be applied to this verse as well. The freedoms and opportunities in, quote, may I obtain the supreme freedoms and opportunities, unquote, refers to a human body in which the 8 freedoms and 10 opportunities are complete. The 8 freedoms are called freedoms because they are freedoms from 8 unfavorable states. From the applications of Mindfulness Sutra, the 8 unfavorable states are hell, pretas, animals, savages, long-living devas, those with wrong views, beings in an era devoid of a Buddha, and idiots.
So everybody should be familiar with this. What do we recognize this in context of?
The
the
four thoughts,
stages.
the four common preliminaries.
Yeah. The four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, the four common preliminaries.
Mm.
And we should be reciting those every day.
Yeah.
So it shows you how interconnected all this stuff is and how profound even the most basic prayers that we do that we're supposed to do every day are.
So the 10 opportunities are comprised of 5 of one's own and 5 from others. The 5 opportunities of one's own are being human, being born in the central land, having complete facilities or faculties, not committing the error of extreme acts, and having the correct object for faith. The 5 opportunities from others are: a Buddha has appeared. He has taught the Dharma. The teachings have remained. It has followers, and they have love in their hearts for the benefit of others. A body that possesses those 18 freedoms and opportunities can become a basis for attaining liberation and omniscience. Therefore, it is called supreme. A basis with these perfect freedoms and opportunities, and which has been born in Jabudvipa, creates good and bad karma that is more powerful than that of beings in other worlds. Therefore, this is supreme among the supreme. From the Samravodaya Tantra, those born in the 3 other continents have the 6th element. The supreme excellent births in Jabudvipa are renowned as being on the level of karma. So you said that the Jabudvipa is our reality level.
Was the continent on which we are living, our world.
Mm-hmm.
Our world.
There's a very, very long, looks relevant, but I haven't read it through, footnote at 267 about this verse. It actually looks like it elaborates on the ideas and straightens it out a little bit, I think, just from a quick peek.
Okay. I'll look at it. So you may have attained an excellent foundation with the freedoms and opportunities, but if you don't have the combination of faith, diligence, and wisdom, you'll not be able to cross over the ocean of samsara's sufferings. So from the Avatamsaka Sutra, those who dwell in existence and have little faith cannot know the enlightenment of the Buddha. The Sutra of the 10 Dharmas also teaches the fault that comes from not having faith. So good qualities will not be born in humans who have no faith. Just as a green sprout is not born from a seed that has not been burned by fire. The sutra requested by Sagaramati teaches the defects that result from lacking diligence in such passages as: the lazy do not have the perfection, from generosity to wisdom. The lazy do not accomplish the benefits of others. For the lazy, enlightenment is very far, completely far. So without going into lengthy detail, there are teachings on the defects that result from lacking wisdom, such as those in abbreviated perfection of wisdom in verse. 1 trillion blind people who are without sight cannot even see the road. So how can they reach the city? Those who have no wisdom whose 5 other perfections are blind, cannot, without that vision, reach enlightenment. According to Vasubandhu, the afflicted, lacking discernment of phenomena, have no method to bring complete purification,
Pacification.
pacification. So I got to reach for my reading glasses. "12 hours in front of a computer. They've just failed." The afflicted, lacking discernment of phenomena, have no method to bring complete pacification, and the afflictions cause them to wander in this ocean of worldly existence. Thus, it is taught that you must have faith, diligence, and wisdom. But what is the essence of faith, diligence, and wisdom? Faith, from the treatise on the 5 aggregates. What is faith? It is having true conviction in, aspiration to, and attraction to, respectively, karma and results, the truth, and the jewel. Therefore, faith can be classified into 3 kinds. Faith that is certainty that the phenomena of actions and results are the process of dependent origination. Faith that is aspiration towards the enlightenment of Buddhahood, and faith that is attraction to the 3 jewels. Then there's diligence. This is a mental event that remedies laziness, which has no enthusiasm for good action. From Treatise on the 5 Aggregates. What is diligence? It is the remedy for laziness. It is the mind's enthusiasm for good action. There are also such classifications of diligence as 2 categories of perseverance and dedication. Now, wisdom, from the Treatise on the 5 Aggregates. What is wisdom? It is the complete discernment of phenomena. Wisdom can be categorized into 2 kinds, mundane and supramundane. Even with faith, diligence, and wisdom, you'll be unable to realize omniscience without the primary condition of reliance on a spiritual friend. Kalyana Mitra, from the 8,000 verse perfection of wisdom. In this way, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, who desires the unsurpassable, truly complete enlightenment of truly complete Buddhahood, should first serve, rely upon, and venerate the spiritual friend. There are countless such quotations. In particular, the great secret Vajrayana teaches, the Guru is the Buddha, the Guru is the Dharma, and likewise, the Guru is the Sangha. The Guru is glorious Vajradhara. The Guru is the cause of all. From the Guhya Samaja, I will emanate. Go ahead and.
Gya Samaja.
No, from the Gya Samaja. Okay. I will emanate in the form of the Akara.
Acharya, which means teacher.
And from the Kala Chakra. These Vajra clubs against the Maras are renowned as Vajrasattvas in this world. Therefore, even the Vajra master who gives you the empowerment for the true meaning appears to be an ordinary being. See him as Vajradhara. In fact, this is what he is. And therefore, without Vajradhara as your guru, you will fail to attain even the smallest siddhi, let alone enlightenment. Therefore, Asvagosa taught, the holder of the Vajra has taught that siddhis follow the master. And Indrabhuti taught, there is no one to use the oars. A boat, if there is no one to use the oars, a boat will not reach the other shore. Even if you perfectly complete all the qualities, without a guru, there will be no end to existence. And from the Hevajra Tantra, nothing else can describe the innate joy. It cannot be found in anything else. It is known by yourself through your own merit and relying upon your time with the guru.
Can I just say something right here? And
Please.
that's, we've used many times the example, that we go round in a circle of Dharma teachings and sitting in the teachings and doing practices. But then, after a period of time, we see that it's a spiral and that we're going up and we're getting tighter and tighter in this spiral going around. And as we're doing that, we're purifying our understanding. We're purifying our knowledge. We're purifying the wisdom and the methods that we use. They're becoming tighter and more precise. And these are things that we have been studying for years in the lower levels of Buddhism 101 and the basic courses that we take with Buddhism. But here now it's being applied at a much higher, tighter level, more precise level. So even some of the definitions have tightened up quite a bit. So it's really fantastic. So we can see how this process works.
This is also taught elsewhere and here too. Therefore, it is taught that you must rely on an excellent spiritual friend. So, let me interrupt myself. Then, Kalamitra, as a spiritual friend, I've sort of assumed that that a Kalamitra can be basically anybody, or does it have to be an excellent spiritual friend? So it's a guru.
I think it's regarded as the latter. It's a highly realized person who has great experience and so on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a monastic, but a spiritual friend who has made the journey and is there to guide us through our journey.
Well, I think there are many different kinds of spiritual friends. As you say, they don't have to be perfect beings. But in terms of this verse, it qualifies the spiritual friend in two ways. It's a spiritual friend who has perfect conduct and is learned in the meaning of the Mahayana. So it's not just any spiritual friend. It's a very learned and spiritual friend with good conduct.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And do you think it means that you have to be in constant contact with that person, or is it something that, you come together, different periods of time and so on, but it doesn't require, residing with them or something like that?
Well,
I think you have to have constant devotion to the spiritual friend.
Yes.
But not necessarily constant contact. You can take example of the life of Milarepa. He was with Marpa for a while, but then he had to leave him and he never saw him again for the rest of his life.
But then in our lives, for instance, we may have our gurus and our root guru, and we may only see our root guru once every year, once every 2 years or 3 years or something like that. And then when we get together, there is a correction that may come from the guru, from that guru.
Sure. There's lots of stories like that. The people only meet gurus at long intervals. So
yes, so
they have the prayers calling the guru from afar.
Right.
That he would say, and always have devotion, always visualize the guru upon the crown of your head.
And sometimes, in our modern times, we can do it on Zoom, we can do it on a phone call,
Sure.
to help us. Of course, being together in person is the best thing, but we can take advantage of our modern times and receive the guru, or meet with the guru in many ways.
It strikes me too. I mean, I'd love to have the guru, stay with the guru all the time, be an attendant. Yeah, that's wonderful for sure. But something can become familiar about that. Whereas if you've seen the guru a little bit, the guru can more easily be an abstract ideal, which is part of how we're supposed to visualize the guru. If we know less of if we don't know them as closely, we might more easily be able to idealize them. And that has advantages too.
Yes. And that brings another point, can these scriptures, can these books, be considered to be guru?
Well, Christians would say Jesus is their guru. They've never seen him. He's been gone 2,000 years.
And then also, from the other point of view, or the other experience, if you're capable of having deep meditation and wisdom that arises up out of you from the guru within, can that be guru?
Well, all I can say is that whenever somebody in the class asks, are you my guru? The teacher almost always says, don't regard me as your guru, regard Milarepa as your guru. Now, obviously, none of us have never met Milarepa in the flesh and only know him through the teaching. So I would have to say that, yes, the teachings can act not as the guru, but as a guide, a doorway to the guru. So
for myself, I basically, always look at the co-emergence of all this, that it's all this coming together, and that, that we are spiritual, and then all these spiritual things are always present everywhere. And it's a matter of our being able to recognize it. If we don't recognize it at this level, eventually we're going to be in the causes and conditions that's going to recognize it at this other level, this higher level.
So I think it was in the Upada Sutra, I think, where Ananda suggested that an admirable friendship is half of the holy life.
yes.
And the Buddha said, no, it's the whole of the holy life. And then there's additional discussion that sort of leads to the idea that the spiritual friendship or noble friend is essential, and that the most essential relationship is the strong friendships with the most important person in our lives, which is ourselves. So that sort of puts the onus on the Buddha in here, as having a right to lead us.
Yeah. At what point do we make the commitment to recognize the Buddha within ourselves? As it says in many of the prayers, until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Well, that's beautiful, but what about, when do we say, okay, I'm really going to work at attaining enlightenment now? Am I always pushing it off till is lightning going to strike from the sky? Is the guru that I sit with every week on Sunday or something like that for a 2-week class, he said, well, now you're ready, you're enlightened, you're ready? Or is it something that you realize within yourself from that one-pointed mindfulness of going in and really digging, or not digging it out, but clearing away all the blockages so that wisdom comes out, so that truth comes out? It's naturally there, but it's blocked up. So when do we start the unblocking? When do
Well,
we
we're
start
doing it
the
right
pur-
now, I
When
think.
do we start the purifying? I'm sorry, what'd you say, Bernie?
We're doing it right now. I don't think it's when do we start? We've already started, obviously.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and I think so, but I think most people miss that point.
They're happy with duality rather than realization. Little outer devotion and not the uniting with the guru by realizing the guru is inside yourself in some true sense.
Well, since all of us, well, they say everybody has Buddha nature, of course, Buddha's inside of you and Buddha's the perfect guru. So,
I mean, that's the secret level of the teachings. It brings it back to you're taking refuge in, call it what you will, the Dharmakaya, your own nature.
but
I'll
of
do
course-
that when I
appreciate that.
realize the higher boomies.
Yeah, well, of course,
Until then,
it's-
I rely on the guru.
well, there's no contradiction between relying on the outer guru and relying on the inner guru. And there's a lot of teachings as to what one does when there's apparent conflict between the two. So, but generally, generally in the long term, you've got to have the experience yourself. You can't just receive it from somebody else. But in the short term, you need a guide to see it.
Thank you.
Yeah. In Jodo Shinshu, there's a legend or a teaching legend where there's a king, a king who committed all kinds of evils and then sort of evolved into a bodhisattva on Earth, and then became such a radical bodhisattva that he made a pledge to all of the Buddhas that until all sentient beings reached enlightenment, that he would not accept Buddhahood. And then, of course, the result of the story is that he's Amida Buddha already. Sure. So all sentient beings have reached enlightenment. We've just forgotten.
I think one way to look at it is like, if I was going to rely on a teacher, I want to rely on a teacher that's enlightened to get me to be enlightened. And I can rely on myself if I'm enlightened already. But if I'm not already completely enlightened, I'll have to rely on someone else that has high realization and enlightenment.
So this is a good time.
Yeah, at least one step further on the path than you are. I don't think. There's obviously a shortage of Buddhas in this world. Anybody who's further along the path can be your guide, probably.
I like what Kenshin Gelson said recently. I guess it was back in November when he was teaching. He and I can't remember. I can't say it the way he said it, but the gist of the idea was he in terms of talking about refuge, he said, he was a rhetorical question. He said, do you think that the Buddha didn't take refuge? When he became Buddha, he stopped taking refuge? He said, no, you never stop taking refuge. To me, it simply pointed towards the way in which the Buddha might encompass the whole, but there's still this greater thing somehow. It's still all within you, but there's a humility before it, a taking refuge in it, an attitude of surrender, of no pride. But anyway, you can pick at that a lot, obviously.
Isn't that, taking refuge in Vajradhara?
I think that's part of the imagery of Vajradhara. Yeah. It's you always have this thing that there's a way of articulating the greater that you take refuge, since while you are the all, you are also part of the all.
Yeah, and going back to what we were talking about before, the distinctions between the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, is the Nirmanakaya is the desire realm as well as the formless or the form realm. And then the Sambhogakaya is desireless but form. But the forms are made as a means to be able to help us to focus, to wrap our puny minds around these far out ideas. The Dharmakaya is both formless and desireless. So, so sometimes it becomes the image of Vajradhara or somebody or Samantabhadra can become an impediment because we're thinking of it in terms of this human appearance. Instead of being able to turn it around and say, well, that's within us. That's why it has that human appearance. We are Vajradhara. We are Samantabhadra once we clean ourselves up, so to speak.
So it's a good time to go back to this text where we're talking about what about these excellent spiritual friends. And the text says pupils should wish to learn from guides who are compatible with their potential, who can give pupils Dharma teachings at the appropriate time. They should know the methods that at specific stages will develop previously underdeveloped good qualities and make previously developed qualities increase. They should have the compassion that wishes to liberate beings from the ocean of existence. For example, a guru who is compatible with someone ready to enter the Dharma of the Vinaya should be a preceptor, upadhyaya, who has the four necessary aspects: the nobility of being a monk, scholarship, stability, and benefit. Similarly, those masters who perform the activity of giving secret teachings and so on should be capable of making pupils develop perfect qualities and the relative and ultimate bodhicitta for the first time, and make them increase those qualities they already developed. According to Shantideva, even at the cost of your life, never abandon the spiritual friend who has perfect bodhisattva conduct and is learned in the meaning of the Mahayana. Those are the qualities the spiritual friend should have. According to the Kala Chakra, when someone is to be guided in the special methods of the Mantrayana, first, correctly depend on gurus who keep the commitments, remain correctly in the Vajrayana. Meditate, be free of attachment, be completely unstained, follow the path of patience. Bestow the path upon pupils, free them from the fear of the hells, and have pure conduct. These Vajra clubs against the Maras are renowned as Vajrasattvas in this world. Also, they should be Vajra masters with the qualities as described in the Tantras. Generally, while pupils are in samsara, within the shell of thick obscuration, they rely upon the guru in the form of an ordinary being. When their obscurations are slightly diminished, the guru will be in the form of an Araya Bodhisattva. From the great path of the accumulations onward, the guru will be in the form of the supreme Nirmanakaya. When the pupils have reached the Arya path, they are able to depend upon a guru appearing in a Sambhogakaya form. Therefore, at this time, do not have a deficient aspiration. The guru is called a spiritual friend. This is the terminology of the perfection vehicle, and it means an unsurpassable friend, because no father, mother, or friend shows the kindness of liberating you from the ocean of existence. Being free of fault and having all good qualities, the spiritual friend is said to be excellent. To quote unquote rely on the spiritual friend means to rely through the 5 methods of pleasing, the 9 kinds of service, and so on. fulfilled the wishes of the sacred friend who has the power of compassion, in the same way as the merchant's son, Siddhana, and the Bodhisattva Sataprarudita relied on their spiritual friend, and in the same way in which the early masters of this practice lineage relied on their gurus. Teaching, in the phrase obtain the quintessence of teachings, refers to the Dharma that was taught, both provisional and definitive teaching, general and special teaching, the three vehicles, the three trainings, and so on. These are in accordance with the capability of pupils, so that they gain within themselves higher and higher qualities on the path. The quintessence is that which enables pupils to grasp the very heart of liberation. When you obtain these teachings, you shouldn't just receive them, but also practice them correctly, practicing them only as they were taught in the Sugata's teaching, in the commentarial treatises, and in the Guru's instructions. Practicing like that, without any obstacle, means to be free of external obstacles from the four elements, humans, non-humans, and so on, and free of the internal obstacles from affliction and thought. In brief, be very free from every obstacle on the path to liberation and omniscience. The last line summarizes the first three. Having attained the freedoms and opportunities, having faith, diligence, and wisdom, relying upon an excellent spiritual friend, receiving the teachings from that spiritual friend, practicing them correctly, and having no obstacles, you are thus someone with the perfect good fortune of practicing the sublime Dharma. Therefore, pray that it may be like this throughout your entire succession of lifetime, from this life until you attain enlightenment.
That's the end of the first section.
And it's good timing.
So this is precious human life. You know, the first of the four thoughts, turn the mind to the Dharma. So I like to say, to turn your mind to the Dharma and hold it there.
Right.
Because we drift all the time. You know, we're sidetracked, we get lazy, and then to get ourselves back, you know, to come back to this that's why it's a great daily practice to do this.
We forget. We forget everything. That's because every moment we're reborn. We reassemble things and we're not too good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Anybody?
Nothing except I really appreciate this teaching. It's so clear and about these points. That's a wonderful teaching.
Yes, indeed. I agree. Thank you. So next time we come together will be April 12th.
Okay.
And because Michael was doing for Tom this time, Michael gets to do it next time too for himself.
What a deal.
Yeah. Lucky me.
Only kidding. Pete's on next time then.
Okay.
Pete? Oh, okay.
And then after the week after that, Pete can do it for Pete.
Okay. All right.
Curtis, you all better?
What?
Are you feeling better?
Oh yeah, I'm feeling great. It's like
That's awesome.
it's just a little of that and a little sniffle. That's it now.
That's
Okay,
great.
great.
Congratulations.
Yeah, you survived. All right. Well, thank you for your patience, folks,
Very
with me.
good. You did a wonderful job in leading us through this wonderful book.
Oh. So, who's going to do a dedication?
By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all
Myself and all
beings, samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all
May I and all
sentient
sentient
beings
beings
quickly
quickly
attain
attain
unsurpassed,
perfect,
perfect, complete,
complete,
precious
and
enlightenment.
precious enlightenment.
May the teachings
The
of the
teachings of the
great
great Venerable Ratna
Ratna
Shri
Shri and
Who is?
I'm sorry, Ratnashri and the Master of Interdependence continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, meditation, until the end of samsara. Om. 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 Ah. Om. Ah. Om. May my body, speech, mind,
and mind
become inseparable from the body, speech, and mind, all the enlightened ones, for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you, guys. That was great.
All right, thank you. See you.
Thank you, Dharma friend.
All right, take care. See y'all soon.
See you, everybody.
All right, cheery, bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night. Take care.
How's your back, Lance?
Today, not so good. You know, I have good days and bad days. So
Okay.
we'll see if it straightens out. But it's getting there.
Mhm.
Okay. See y'all later.